It's so nice to see you. It's really nice to be here. I work for Swedish Society for Nature Conservation, which is an environmental NGO. It's a non-profit organization that, as the name says, we work to protect the nature. And I'm really happy to be here because we, of course, want to put our nose in the development of the Stockholm region. And my presentation today is, I'm going to try to convince you to take nature and environment very, very much into consideration when you are working on your projects. I'm going to bring up a few things. I don't know if you've run into them before, but the Swedish Parliament adopted in 1999 16 environmental objectives. And these objectives are really important when you plan or in every activity of our society. They should be the guides for what we do in our society. And I will also introduce to you the concept of ecosystem services. Many of you might have heard of it, many perhaps haven't heard about it at all. But for us, it's really important to plan the city, the society, according to the ecosystem services, because it's the services that nature gives us for free, such as clean air, clean drinking water, and so on. And if we build ourselves into a society where you deplete these, the natural resources that give us the ecosystem services, then we're kind of screwed in the long run. Swedish Society for Nature Conservation, or SSNC. My organization has been around for a bit over 100 years, and we exist on national, regional, and local levels all over the country. And I work for the regional branch here in the Stockholm region, and we have about 200,000 members. It's per people that pay membership fees to be part of our organization. And for the Stockholm branch, we work a lot then with protection of green areas. As you can see, Stockholm is very green. There's a lot of nature. It's also very blue, a lot of water. And this nature is very, very much part of the identity of Stockholm and the people that are living here. People use them for recreation, and go out playing, go out hiking, and kids are playing, and it's very important for us, and for my organization it's really important to see to it that this nature stays. And we also work with biodiversity. The more diverse nature is, or society is, the better, the more stable it is. And here we come again to the ecosystem services. We really need to maintain the services that nature gives us for free. And it comes also, ecosystem services is also important when we talk about climate change, because it reduces heat, waves, and so on. And we work with mobility. It's important for us that people have a possibility to move around in the region and also within the city and not using the car. Because the more you use the car, the more impact on the environment it will have. So biking, walking, public transport are better ways to move around in than by using your car. And we look at infrastructure developments. And I will talk more about the regional development. There's a regional development plan for the infrastructure in the Stockholm region. And we're quite critical to this plan because it doesn't take into consideration these environmental objectives that I talked about earlier on. And also we work very much with, along with a lot of actors within society, how do we develop the Stockholm region as sustainable as possible. So what governs urban development? Well, a lot of people are moving into the cities. More than 50% of the global population live in cities, and I've seen a number that is going to be increased to about 70% by 2050, I think the year is. And why do people live in cities? Well, the financial situation here is usually much better than on the countryside. If you are starting up a business, you have a bigger market in the city. And since the market is bigger, more businesses, that means more job opportunities. The income level is usually higher in the city. More people means more transportation, both of people, locally, regionally, globally, but also transportation of goods. The more people that are living in a city, the more goods needs to be transported into the city because it cannot provide all the resources itself. And if the more that is coming in, the more it has to get out of the city as well, such as waste. And when it comes to the Stockholm region, about 20 to 30,000 new inhabitants come into the region every year. And they need to live someplace. They need to be transported. They go from their houses to their jobs, from the jobs to pick up the kids at daycare. They go shopping. And where are they supposed to live? And how are they supposed to transport themselves? The big questions. But what we think, my organization think, is that nature and environment also should govern the urban development. But unfortunately, it's not done yet. And I would be very happy if you guys consider the nature and environment when you do your projects. Because as I said, it's really important to keep the nature around, both for public health as well. The more you're outdoors, the more you move around in green areas, the better you will feel. Oops. And unfortunately, environment and nature is not taken that much into consideration. And this is despite these 16 environmental objectives that was adopted in 1999 by the Swedish Parliament. And all actors in society are supposed to take these objectives into consideration. And I've only written them down here very fast. I won't go into them more in detail. I will go into some more in detail because they have to do with urban development to do. There is a website, on the next slide I can just show it there. It's www.miljömål.nu, and they have information in English about the environmental objectives. And it's stated that the objectives should regulate the development of the society. And when it comes to urban planning, it is, the government say 3 objectives, and that's reduce climate impact. The air should be clean, we need to breathe it, and the environment that we live in should be good for us. But my organization, we also want to add a 4th objective, and that is that we need to keep biodiversity, a rich diversity of plant and animal life. And like I said, if this is new to you, go into this website and read more, and you're also more than welcome to contact me and ask more about this. And this is what is said. The Parliament has said that the environmental objectives should describe what quality and state of the environment is sustainable in the long term. It is based on the definition of sustainable development, that we should leave over a society to our kids, that is sustainable. They should also be able to satisfy their needs. And there's a generational goal that the society needs to change to reach these goals, and it needs to be done in 1 generation. And action should happen in all levels of society. And there are 16 goals, and only 2 goals have been reached on national levels, and only 4 on regional level. And those were the easy ones. The climate goal, that's a long way. It's a long ways away. And when it comes to I'm going to go in more into infrastructure, because I saw that you've had Trafikverket, the National Transportation Authority, they were here yesterday talking to you. And there's a regional plan for infrastructure that is based on the national plan for infrastructure. And you see that's my little dude, the red one, that looks really sad, because they have not taken the environmental objectives into consideration. And we have a regional goal in the Stockholm County that carbon dioxide emissions from traffic should be reduced by 30% to 2030. But this plan, they have not taken that into consideration at all, just business as usual. And what they've been looking at in this plan is there's a lot of people moving into the Stockholm region, and how are they supposed to move around? In cars, mostly. And that's what they're thinking. They see more people, there's going to be more cars, so we have to build more roads. And whereas we say, but we have this goal, minus 30% carbon dioxide emissions by 2030. That should be the goal. That's what you should be looking at. Minus 30%. Okay, what do we have? What measures do we have to put in this plan to reach that goal? So I saw that you're going to meet Trafikverket tomorrow again, and they're going to talk about this förbifarten, this big road they're going to build on the outskirts of the Stockholm County, so cars don't have to travel into the city. And then think about this, that if you build more roads, you're going to have more traffic, because it's going to be easier to move around for a while. So more people are going to take their cars. And the more traffic we have, the more emissions of carbon dioxide we will have. And there are other things in this plan also. They don't say the infrastructure that they build, they don't know what kind of effect this will have on the landscape and the nature in Stockholm. And emission also increases health hazards. But yeah, minus 30% to 2030. It doesn't fly if you build more roads, because that will give us more traffic. And it's not only my organization that is critical to this plan. We have this organization called the Swedish National Audit Office, and their job is to look into the decisions that the government is doing, because the parliament gives the government targets, goals, and the decision that the government makes need to comply with these targets. And we have the climate objective, and that is we have to reduce it. But this plan, the regional plan and also the national plan, will mean that the carbon emissions will increase. The investments in infrastructure need to contribute to decreased emissions of carbon dioxide. That's the goal. But what the audit office says, that these plans, they have underestimated the carbon dioxide emissions. And they also say, if you build a new road, you have to have more traffic on that road for it to be profitable. And more traffic means, I've said this before. And what they also say, there's a quote here, is that if there are not more traffic, then the roads will not be profitable. No traffic means you don't have to build roads. And this is just repetition. This is what we think. Environmental objectives are overarching. Traffic needs to decrease. And we have the measures we want to see to decrease cars is to make it expensive to use cars. You can have smart congestion charges. When you go into Stockholm City, you need to pay a tax or a fee. And you can also make it more expensive if you have a car that needs more gas, you know. Yeah, I've said that already. And what we've done also is to produce this policy for sustainable urban development. And what it says, just broadly, is take nature into consideration, plan the society so we don't have to use the car. We should be able to walk and bike wherever we want to go, or take the public transport. And this policy, we have it in English, and you're more than welcome to download it from our website. And Ola, I think I sent it to you once, but if you don't have it, I can send it to you again, because I guess you have a project website or a course website. Yeah. How am I doing in time-wise? Oh, fast then. Because in this policy, we have 10 measurements that you're more than welcome to dwell more deeply into. And like I said, the nature in Stockholm is very much part of the region's identity. So we need to protect it to keep it as attractive as it is. And use green and blue values as central assets when creating attractive urban areas. And that means that you should include it in your planning. When you're planning your areas, you should have housing, and you should have, the infrastructure the roads. You're planning that, and you're putting it down on a map. But you should do that with nature as well. That's what we're saying, because it has to get a higher value, because it's so important for us people to have that it's close for us to go out in nature. And we're saying that, I should also say that my organization is not against the development of the Stockholm region. We're well aware of that people are moving in and the region is growing. And we can't do anything about it. What we can do is try to make it as sustainable as possible, and that's what we're working on. So it's another thing that we're saying is build where it's built already, and avoid to build in green areas in nature, and especially nature that has not been touched before. And also avoid to build around lakes and other water bodies, because everybody should have the right to go down to the water and enjoy it. And if you start building around it, there will be no access for us, for the rest of us who can't afford living just nearby a lake, And nature also need, legal protection, so we say create more nature reserves. And this, when you build, create nearness, not distance, and dependence on transports. And conserve wild nature and large continuous green areas. Around Stockholm we have what we call 10 green wedges, and they are large green continuous areas. You can actually walk from the city center to the outskirts of the Stockholm region in nature, plain nature. And this is also create new green areas. You're able to, if you really need to build on nature, in nature, you can compensate the loss of biodiversity, for example, or the values that this natural patch had by creating similar nature elsewhere. So ecological compensation is something that you perhaps would like to look up as well. And again, ecosystem services is extremely important. And when you start building, try to think about that the environment, it's done as environmentally sound as possible. This machine might run with, environmentally sounder fuels and oils. The houses might be, or hopefully is passive houses, and so on. Again, bikes, walks, public transport is really important. Everybody should have access to this and reduce traffic by congestion charges. Mix areas for working, living, shopping, and service, and this is also something that I think is coming more and more. You create mixed areas instead of you have housing here and you have working places there and you have the industry there. You mix it more and more, which also the dependence on using your car is decreasing, because you can visit your doctor by walking there, you can go to your dentist, you can do grocery shopping and stuff like that. And we have small children they can't walk as far as we can. So they're more dependent on the nature being nearby, very close to them. And they need also the traffic environment to be safe, so they can perhaps bike to school, which is very good for their health. And this is the last point we're making in our policy, is instead of building villa carpets, this urban sprawl, try to plan the society as densely as possible. And that preserves nature also. And that was that, and you're more than welcome to contact me if you have any questions. That's my email address, and that's the website where you will find the policy. We don't. Our website is not in English, unfortunately, but we have some reports that are in English. But you're more than welcome to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your lecture. So there will be a short time for questions here, just like yesterday. Yeah, Karin.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to ask you, I mean, now looking at Stockholm as a whole, from your point of view, are there any cities of particular that you look at as kind of good references where you have done good work? That
I mean, New York City is actually doing quite a bit when it comes to creating new green areas, because they realize that they need it, because the people need it for their own health. I was there last summer. They've, along an old railroad, they've built a park, and just some little water running and green areas, and also beehives. And there are a lot of people there. It's not a big area, but there's so much people there, which is really nice. So you see that people are really drawn to the green and nature. Chicago is another good example where a lot of people died. I don't remember which year it was, but because of extreme heat. So the mayor there saw the need to create more green areas within the city to reduce the temperature. That's kind of what I come up with just on the top of my head. But Stockholm is a good example as well, I must say.
Yes, I'm, of course, a lot of things you are critical to, and a lot of things that you talk about that is in contrary to all the plans that are made and the plans that we have seen. Yesterday we had presentation of the regional plan, and the day before we had the overview plan of the Stockholm municipality. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your view on this document.
What I know about the regional plan that we're working a lot with is that it actually states that we have to reduce the emissions of carbon dioxide, but and also the preservation of these green areas, large green areas, and that's really good. The regional plan also tried to develop regional, I don't know what you could call them, in the kind of regional nodes. They try to develop areas outside of the Stockholm city, so people just don't live here in the city, but also a bit further out, which is a good plan. But yeah, I mean, you can. That's a good part. And when it comes to the Stockholm comprehensive plan, unfortunately, I'm not. I don't know about it as much. But again, what I can say is that environmental objectives is not being taken into consideration as much as they should. They talk about it, but they don't have any measures on how to actually reach them. I think they go about, business as usual too much.
And it's maybe also the reality and the plan is not the same thing, of course. Do we have any more questions?
Okay, I hope some students also ask questions, because right now it's only us. We had last 2 days presentations also by Office of City Planning and regional offices, Ulla mentioned, and everybody was really talking about Stockholm as a growing region, but also this idea related to economy, how important for economy is that the city grows. So it seems to me that there could be a conflict, or there could be a kind of really a area to look into. How, if the region is growing, how in a smart way you can actually allow it to grow, but also to limit the damage on the environment. What is your take on that?
You mean it has to grow?
Does it have to grow?
Yeah.
That's the first question.
Yeah, but that's what it does. I mean, it is growing. People are moving in. I don't know. It's a philosophical question, a philosophical discussion we have to have about that. It's yeah. I mean, we can't say you can't come here and live here. People decide for their own where they want to live, you know, and where they want to set up their businesses. We can't stop them. There's no way. So we have to. That's this Stockholm on the Move that Färgfabriken here is having, the exhibition and everything. You have to meet all the actors in society and discuss how should the Stockholm region be developed as well as possible. And then you also have if the city proper takes, if everybody moves in here, then there will be an imbalance between the outer parts of the region and the Stockholm region. I mean, there are municipalities in the outer parts of the region that are quite poor, even though it's in the Stockholm region, because they need more people, well-educated people with higher income to come in and pay taxes for them to get better services, schools, transportation systems, and so on. So I think that's you said it in the beginning, put your own projects on a regional scale. And sometimes, if I may be critical again, the Stockholm municipality of Stockholm does not always do that. They're thinking that Stockholm municipality should grow, and they don't put themselves in a regional perspective.
Okay.
I don't know if Anna has she arrived. Or, yeah, more questions here.
I was wondering, do you work anything with farming and like food security?
No, not our office that much, but we have other parts of our organization that do that.
Okay.
We have a network, for example, for agriculture.
When you mentioned that those who drive cars should pay more so that they drive less, isn't there any system in Stockholm that if you build in a more environmental way, you get points, or weren't there some green points that you could get? Isn't there something that the investor gains from being environmental?
I mean, cars or buildings?
The one who is building all these buildings, like, what does he? Is there something that he can gain from being environmental? Are there any like points that the city gives to an extra green building or something like that?
Sorry, I don't know. I can't answer that. Sorry. Perhaps somebody else. Somebody else knows. I haven't heard about that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was just thinking some of these things that you're saying is just trying to keep it as good as possible and just in a way going on and building in the same way as we're doing. Have you any reflections on what changes should we do in terms of lifestyle, or what are the things we should be prepared for?
Yeah, I mean, since quite a long time ago, you're talking about it's up to the consumer. It's a consumer that should. We also need to take responsibility for the lifestyle that we are leading, but my personal view is that it's not up to every individual to change our lifestyle. It is up to policymakers to make it easier for us to be living environmentally more sound. And I don't know. It's a philosophical questions. We've had discussion with friends and I mean, we live in very large houses here in Sweden. Should we be able to do that in the future? Should we be able to drive cars? Should everybody have a right to have cars? Every second person in Sweden has a car. Is that okay? I don't know. I think we have to, the society, we have to make it easier. The society has to make it easier for us to be more environmentally sound.
But you're not working with any kind of forecasts or alternative images of the future that could be...
No, I mean, we have this, you know, the global footprint, which says that a sustainable way of living is 2 tons carbon dioxide emission per year. And the only people that live up to that is the poorest people in India and China. And we don't. We have, I think, we emit about 7 tons carbon dioxide per year in Sweden, and that's not taken into consideration the imports of goods that we're doing. I think that if we take that into consideration, we come up to about 12 tons per year, so something like that.
I think Stockholm and Sweden in general is quite fortunate because they are quite naturally a green country. They have electric power, other hydropower, and they have a lot of water and a lot of nature and very few people. So Stockholm is not very large.
No.
And isn't the problem really that people don't really value what they have? They take it for given.
Yeah,
And
I can agree to that.
How do you cope with that? Because, I mean, your examples were Chicago and New York, and then they're like
huge.
8 million people,
Yeah.
and Chicago, I don't know. And they really have environmental problems there. So these problems are tangible. They can feel them. And here, I mean, everything is nice and green. How do you reach out to like, show that there can be problems very, very soon?
I think the summer has been a wake-up call for many because it's been very cold and very rainy. And I mean, our crops have been dying because it's been so wet. And us poor people, we have to go abroad to get some sun and warmth, which a lot of people have done. But yeah, I agree. We have our electricity. We have our clean water. I mean, Lake Mälaren here, just outside your window, it's a freshwater reservoir for the whole region of Lake Mälaren. And even though we can drink that water. So we are very fortunate. And that's why it's sometimes quite hard to work for an environmental organization saying, climate change, come on people, stop using your cars. And they just say, well, I don't make that big of a difference. If I drive my car, that's okay. But they don't. It's easy not to have the global perspective. If you don't see it, you know, in your front yard, then you don't think about it.